My goal has always been, when I am the one on the stage, when I am the one on camera, to try and present whatever ideas that I have in such a simple way that somebody can understand them and internalize them and repeat those same ideas in their own words. If a message has value, it has to be simple, understandable, and repeatable.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you can make it simple, that means somebody else can understand it. And if somebody else can understand it, that means they can repeat it without you there. A message must be bigger than the messenger. Otherwise, every message would just die with the messenger.
Right.
You know, civil rights would have ended when Martin Luther King was assassinated, but clearly it didn't, because the message was bigger than the messenger. But we look to the messenger to inspire us and point into a far off, distant destination in the future, an unrealizable, idealized vision of the future. And we take that vision and make it our own, and we commit our own efforts and our own energies to building it.
Yeah.
I'm an idealist. I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people can wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe at work, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. Too many of us are going to work with an uncomfortable feeling that this isn't what work should feel like. Right. Being able to say, I love my job is a right. It's not a privilege. It's not for a lucky few who get to go home at the end of the day and say, I love my job.
Right.
It's not some lottery that you win. Then the company has the audacity to say, millennials aren't loyal. It's not, what are you kidding me? It's like they've entered into a workforce in which they're just treated as a disposable commodity. Why should they give you loyalty? Show a little loyalty to your people and you'll be amazed the loyalty they give back.
Right.
And yet those in power, those with more money than us and more influence than us, than more authority than us, keep telling us that they're right and we're wrong, that we don't understand how business works, that this is how things are. I don't believe that when the majority of people feel that something is not right, that it's the few people who know and the rest of us are wrong. That's the great irony of all of this, which is the power belongs to the people, which is why dictators bus in crowds to give the appearance that they're popular, or they actually have fake elections to give the appearance that they have a mandate. And what keeps dictators and bad leaders, authorities in power, is by keeping the people divided. Because if you can create mistrust amongst neighbors, then the people can never come together and never depose the leader. And this is very true in business as well. The people have the power. And so if we have mass layoffs on an annualized basis and you create internal competition, what you're doing is you're pitting people against people, especially if you create a system where we're only incentivized based on individual performance. So one of the things that I go into in this book is about changing our mindset away from having competitors to having rivals. So there are other players in the game, right? A competitor in the game is someone I want to beat, right? But in this game, there's no such thing. And so we have to change our mindset away from having competition, which is finite, and direct it towards having rivalry, which is infinite. And I generally believe that a worthy rival is someone whose strengths reveal to you your weaknesses. And we can take that energy and direct it against them in a competitive spirit, or we can take all those uncomfortable feelings and say, where can I grow? What self-work do I have to do?
Yeah.
Worthy rivalry is someone else who's really good at what they do, reveals to me my weaknesses, and it's an opportunity for me to grow and be better at what I do. Leadership is a responsibility to people around us. It's not a rank. You've heard me say this before. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders.
Right.
They have authority, and we do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them.
Right.
And I know many people, as do you, who sit at lower levels of organizations who have no formal authority, in that they've made a choice to look after the person to the left of them and look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. In other words, leadership can come from anywhere within an organization. Yes, we have the right to demand to have better leaders and better leadership in our companies. But when we don't, quitting is not the only option, nor is simply complaining, but undertaking the task of becoming the leader we wish we had.
Wow.
Anyone at any level can become a student of leadership, and anyone at any level can choose to take to look after this person and that person and work tirelessly to see that they rise, they become better versions of themselves, and that they show up to work inspired and go home feeling fulfilled and feel safe when they're at work because of us. There's a Marine that I know, who's a Marine general, who says the way he can judge the quality of a lieutenant is he listens to how the troops talk about their lieutenant. Is it the lieutenant or is it our lieutenant?
Ooh.
They take possession of their leader, right? That's our lieutenant, right? Versus it's always the colonel. It's never our colonel. It's always the colonel because there's no relationship. It's too distant, right? So as soon as we take possession, emotional possession of our leaders, there's a sign of devotion and mutual trust. But that relationship starts with how the leader leads. But we call you leader not because you have the rank, we call you leader because you took the risk to trust first. Because you took the risk to build the relationship first. You took the risk to create the circle of safety first. You took the risk to go head first towards the vision first. That's why we call you leader. Because you undertook an element of risk. You literally lead. You went first. Right? Nothing to do with rank. Good followership is as important as good leadership. That we respect that when a decision is made, we will give our blood, sweat, and tears to see that the decision our leaders have made will be successful. And if it fails, we will help pick up the pieces because that's the deal. The best leaders are actually the best followers. The best leaders never think that that the buck stops with them. They always believe that they're in service to something bigger than themselves. And even if that leader, the person in the leadership position, gets to the tippy top of whatever organization, they still feel that they're subordinate to something even bigger. The Pope still thinks that he's in service to something bigger than him, right? A CEO of a visionary organization feels that they are still beholden to and following a vision bigger than them. So the best leaders actually are the best followers, even if they're at the highest levels of the organization. They're still in service.
Right. It may not be to a person, but to a cause,
mission, an idea, a vision,
God, something.
Whatever it is, there's still some sort of something that they're beholden to, and they're devoted to, and they're in service to. There's nothing wrong with having metrics and goals. Those are very important to human beings. But to what end? What are we serving bigger than ourselves, right? So my analogy is like an iceberg, right? So we know that the majority of an iceberg lies underneath the water. So when there's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the iceberg sitting above the ocean, right? It's the visionary who can see beneath the ocean. It's the visionary who stands there, and even though everybody sees a tiny or nothing, they can see nothing. The visionary is able to explain what exists in their imagination only. Okay, it only exists in their imagination, and they inspire a few people to join them because yes, we can do that, and they start working, and a little bit of the iceberg shows. And before too long, enough of the iceberg shows that people can go, this is a real thing. You're not insane and crazy. What you're doing is actually in reality. But the thing is, the vast majority of the iceberg still exists under the ocean. And so what the visionary does is constantly remind us where we're going and how much more we have to do. And though we can celebrate how much we've achieved, how much of the iceberg is sticking up above the ocean, the reality is we have way more work, and when I die, it's still going to be the majority underneath the ocean. And that's what the movement is all about. The metrics help us measure how fast and how far how much of the iceberg we revealed. But the infinite game is understanding that the majority of our work still lies undiscovered. We are players in infinite games every day of our lives, whether we like it or not. There's no such thing as being number one in marriage. Good luck with that. There's no one who's declared the winner of life. We come, we go. If you make more money than somebody else, you're not the winner of life. But if we listen to too many leaders, they talk about being number one, being the best, and beating their competition. The analogy for living with an infinite mindset is not about winning, right? The better analogy is exercise, right? So how do you be a healthy person? Well, you have to eat well, you have to get enough sleep, you have to nurse your personal relationships, and you have to exercise. Living an infinite mindset is the same thing. There's a series of practices. Do some, you'll be better than none, but you kind of have to do them all. An infinite mindset is more like a lifestyle, which is, yes, absolutely, having finite goals is very important. We are absolutely driven by goals. We like measuring things. It is much easier to get into the lifestyle of exercise and the habit of it if I have metrics, but it's not about winning. It's not actually about the goal. The goals and metrics are simply a way to help us measure speed and distance. I've lost this amount of weight over this amount of time. And so when we beat ourselves up because we miss an arbitrary number by an arbitrary date, but the question is, are we building a healthy organization? And I would rather organizations do all the right things to build a healthy organization, even if they miss arbitrary dates. Bob Gaylor, the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, has the best definition of humility I've ever heard. He said, don't confuse humility with meekness. Humility is being open to the ideas of others. You know? So it's not this, it's not me, it's,
Right.
Self-confidence is a good thing. Thinking you're better than everyone else, that's unhealthy.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Thinking you're good is healthy. Thinking you're better than others is unhealthy. When we talk about building one's self-confidence, I think the mistake that we make is that we look inside. I think the reality is when we try to build our self-confidence, we should be looking to our friends, we should be nursing our relationships. When I'm looking to build my self-confidence, the question is, who around me do I need to take care of? The way we build our self-confidence is by helping somebody else build theirs. I think true self-confidence, belief in oneself and belief in one's cause, I could not do the things that I'm doing. And I would not have the strength to have made the sacrifices that I've made or continue to wake up on a daily basis to drive to spread this message if I were alone. We actually are at our best when we are in service to each other in a cause greater than ourselves.
The more we focus on what we're lacking, what we don't have, what's not working for us, the challenges we're going through, the more doubt we're going to have.
Correct.
When we're inwardly focused on what we don't have. So imagine it's your last day on Earth. But you get to leave behind a piece of paper and write 3 things down, and this is what the world has left. 3 things you know to be true, 3 lessons that you would share with the world from everything you've learned up to this point, that you think that would be helpful lessons for the world to use as a guide.
The first one is start with why. Like, know why you do what you do and start there. The second one is commit your life to a life of service. Take care of the people around you. And the third one is commit yourself to a vision of the world that you'll never practically achieve, but you'll die trying. So start with a sense of a foundation of purpose. Take care of the people around you, and commit your work to drive something bigger than yourself. Greatness is living a life committed to see that others find greatness. For me, greatness is about service.
You talk about having financial resources. I realized that I needed to first believe that I could do something different, that wherever my mindset was, my bank account was going to follow. And so the big question is, how do you go from welfare to Wall Street? How do you go from public assistance to going public, which is a big leap?